You were not born hating yourself. You learned it, slowly, quietly, without realizing it. It did not happen in one moment. It happened in many, small moments. Moments where you were judged, compared, corrected, told to be better, told to act differently, told to become something else. And at first, you listened, because you trusted. You believed those voices were guiding you, helping you, shaping you. But over time, something changed. Those voices became your voice. That criticism became your thoughts. That pressure became your identity. And now, you don't need anyone else to judge you. You do it yourself. Constantly, you question your worth. You doubt your ability. You compare your life to others. And somehow, you always fall short. No matter what you achieve, it doesn't feel like enough. No matter how far you come, you still feel behind. Because the standard is always moving, always higher, always just out of reach. And the worst part is, you believe it. You believe you are not enough. Not yet. Not fully. Not completely. So you try harder. You chase approval. You seek validation. You want someone to tell you that you matter, that you are enough, that you are worthy. And sometimes, you hear it. Someone praises you. Someone acknowledges you. Someone validates you. And for a moment, you feel it. Relief, confidence, certainty. But it doesn't last. Because it didn't come from you. Came from them. And anything that comes from others can be taken away. This is the cycle. You seek. You receive. You lose. You seek again. And it never ends. Because you are looking in the wrong place. The Stoic understood something most people never realize. Your worth is not discovered. It is not given. It is not earned through approval. It is built from within, through discipline, through action, through self-respect. And until you build it, you will always depend on others, always feel uncertain, always feel incomplete. This is why you must change direction, not outward, but inward. You must stop asking, what do others think of me? And start asking, what do I think of myself? Because that answer determines everything. How you act, how you think, how you live. If you see yourself as weak, you will act weak. If you see yourself as unworthy, you will accept less. If you see yourself as not enough, you will keep chasing more. But if you build your self-worth, everything changes. You stop chasing approval. You stop needing validation. You stop depending on others to feel whole, because you already are. This is not something that happens overnight. It is built through daily choices, through discipline, through honesty, through courage. Because loving yourself is not easy. It requires you to face yourself, to accept yourself, to build yourself. And most people avoid that. They distract themselves. They chase attention. They seek approval. Because it is easier than doing the work. But you are not here for easy. You are here for growth. You are here for truth. You are here for change. So if you are ready to stop seeking and start building, subscribe to this channel to get more of this. Because what you are about to learn will not just change how you feel, it will change who you become. Now, let's go deeper. 1. Stop seeking approval. There is a habit so deeply rooted that most people never question it. They live with it. They act through it. They shape their entire identity around it. And yet, they don't even see it. The need for approval. It starts early, before you even understand what it means. You do something, and you look up, waiting for a reaction, a smile, a nod, a sign that you did well. And when it comes, you feel something, warmth, relief, validation, and your mind makes a connection. This is good. This is what I should do. And so you repeat it, again, and again, and again, until eventually, you are no longer acting for yourself. You are acting for approval. This becomes your standard. Not is this right, but will this be accepted? Not do I want this, But will they like this? And without realizing it, you give your power away, because now, your decisions are no longer yours. They are influenced, filtered, controlled by others. This is where self-worth begins to break. Not in one moment, but in a pattern. Pattern of seeking, waiting, depending. You want to be liked. You want to be accepted. You want to be seen as valuable. So you adjust yourself. You soften your opinions. You hide your truth. You become agreeable. You avoid conflict. You say yes when you want to say no. You laugh when you don't find it funny. You agree when you don't believe it. And each time you do this, something small happens. You disconnect from yourself. Just a little. Not enough to notice immediately, but enough to matter. Because over time, these small moments add up until one day, you realize something uncomfortable. You don't know who you are because you have spent so long being who others expect you to be. This is the cost of approval. Feels safe, but it weakens you. Feels rewarding, but it empties you. Feels necessary, but it controls you. The Stoics saw this clearly. They understood that approval is not something you should depend on, because it is unstable, unpredictable, and outside your control. One person may approve of you today and reject you tomorrow. Another may admire you while someone else criticizes you. So which one defines your worth? Which opinion matters? Which voice is correct? You cannot answer that, because there is no consistent answer. And that is the problem. If your worth depends on something inconsistent, your confidence will always be unstable. This is why you feel uncertain. Not because you lack value, but because you placed your value in the wrong place, outside yourself, in opinions, in reactions, in validation. And now, you are trying to control something that cannot be controlled. Other people, their thoughts, their judgments, their perceptions. And that is exhausting, because no matter what you do, you cannot control how others see you. You can act perfectly and still be misunderstood. You can do your best and still be criticized. You can succeed and still be judged. So why depend on something that will always change? The Stoic answer is simple. You don't. You remove that dependency. You stop needing approval. Not by rejecting people, but by redefining your value. You shift your focus from what others think to what you do, from how you are seen to how you act, from approval to character, because your character is within your control. Your discipline is within your control. Your actions are within your control. And when your worth is based on those, it becomes stable, reliable, unshakable. This does not mean you ignore others completely. It means you stop depending on them. You stop needing their approval to feel worthy. You stop waiting for validation to feel confident. You stop adjusting yourself to be accepted. And instead, you become grounded in your own standards, in your own values, in your own identity. First, this feels uncomfortable because you are breaking a habit, a deeply rooted pattern. Your mind will resist. It will ask, what will they think? Will they like this? Will they approve? And in that moment, you must decide to follow the old pattern or to build a new one, to seek approval or to stand on your own. This is where growth happens, not in comfort, but in decision. You choose to speak honestly, even if it is not accepted. You choose to act with integrity, even if it is not praised. You choose to be yourself, even if it is not understood. And every time you do this, something changes. You feel stronger, more certain, more grounded, because now your actions are aligned with who you are, not with what others expect. And that alignment creates confidence, real confidence, not the kind that depends on praise, but the kind that comes from certainty. You know who you are. You know what you stand for. You know what you value. And that is enough, more than enough, because once you reach that point, you no longer need approval. You appreciate it, but you do not depend on it. You receive it, but it does not define you. You hear it, but it does not control you. And that is freedom. Freedom from opinions. Freedom from validation. Freedom from dependence. The kind of freedom that allows you to live honestly, to act confidently, to build yourself without distraction. If you are still here, you are beginning to understand something powerful. Your need for approval is not helping you, it is limiting you. And once you see that, you can begin to change it, because what comes next will help you build something stronger, something real, something that cannot be taken from you. 2. Respect yourself through action. There is a gap between what you say and what you do. Most people live in that gap. They say they want discipline. They say they want confidence. They say they want to love themselves. But their actions tell a different story. They delay what matters. They avoid what is difficult. They choose comfort over growth. And then they wonder why they don't feel strong, why they don't feel confident, why they don't respect themselves. Because self-respect is not built in words. It is built in actions. Every action you take sends a message to yourself. Every decision reinforces an identity. When you say you will do something and you don't, you send a message. I don't follow through. I don't keep my word. I am not reliable, not consciously, but internally, quietly, repeatedly. And over time, that becomes belief. You begin to see yourself that way, not because it is who you are, but because it is what you have practiced. This is the truth most people avoid. Your identity is not fixed. It is built through repetition, through behavior, through action. So if your actions are inconsistent, your identity becomes unstable. If your actions lack discipline, your self-respect weakens. And without self-respect, self-love cannot exist. Because how can you love someone you don't trust? Someone who breaks promises? Someone who avoids responsibility? You can't. And that someone is you. This is why action matters. Not for others, but for you. Because every time you act with discipline, you rebuild trust. Every time you follow through, you strengthen identity. Every time you do what is difficult, you create respect. This is how self-worth is built. Not through thinking, but through proof. You prove to yourself that you are capable, that you are reliable, that you are strong. And that proof becomes belief. Real belief. Not forced, not imagined, but earned. The Stoic lives by this principle. They do not wait to feel motivated. They do not wait to feel ready. They act, because action creates clarity. Action creates momentum. Action creates identity. And identity creates confidence. So the question is not, how do I feel? The question is, what must be done? And then, you do it, regardless of mood, regardless of comfort, regardless of resistance. Because discipline is not emotional. It is intentional. First, this feels difficult. Your mind resists. Your body resists. You look for easier options. Excuses appear. I'll do it later. I'm not ready. I don't feel like it. But every time you listen, you weaken your self-respect. And every time you act anyway, you strengthen it. That is the choice. Comfort or growth. Excuses or discipline. Weakness or strength. And that choice happens daily. In small moments. Quiet decisions. Moments where no one is watching. Those moments define you. Not the big ones. Not the visible ones. But the private ones. Because that is where identity is built. So you start small. You don't try to change everything at once. You focus on one thing, one promise, one action, and you keep it, no matter what. You wake up when you say you will. You complete what you start. You do what you avoid. And each time you do, you feel it. A shift. Small, but real. You begin to trust yourself. Just a little more. You begin to respect yourself. Just a little more. And over time, that grows. Because repetition creates identity. You become someone who follows through, who acts with discipline, who does what must be done. And that identity changes everything. You no longer question yourself. You no longer doubt your ability. You no longer rely on motivation, because you have built something stronger. Consistency, discipline, self-respect. And from that, self-love emerges. Not forced, not imagined, but earned. Because now, you know you can trust yourself. You know you will act. You know you will show up. And that certainty is confidence. Real confidence. Not loud, not performative, but quiet, stable, unshakable. So if you want to love yourself, do not start with thoughts. Start with action. Do what is necessary. Stay consistent. Build discipline. Because that is how self-respect is created. And self-respect is the foundation of self-love. If you are still here, you are not just listening. You are changing. 3. Set boundaries. There is a moment that happens more often than you realize. Someone asks something of you. A favor. Your time, your energy, your attention. And immediately, you feel something. A hesitation, a quiet resistance, a sense that you don't want to do it. But instead of listening to that feeling, you ignore it. You smile. You agree. You say yes. And in that moment, something small happens. You betray yourself. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a way others can see. But internally, you go against what you feel. Against what you need. Against what you know is right for you. Why? Because you don't want to disappoint. You don't want to create tension. You don't want to be seen as selfish. So you sacrifice yourself to keep others comfortable. This becomes a pattern. You say yes when you mean no. You give when you are already exhausted. You tolerate what drains you. And over time, you begin to feel something. Resentment, not toward others, but toward yourself. Because deep down, you know you are allowing this. You know you are not protecting yourself. You know you are not respecting your limits. And that creates tension, a quiet frustration, a sense that something is wrong. Because something is. You are not setting boundaries. The Stoic understands something clearly. If you do not define your limits, others will define them for you. Not because they are bad, but because they will act based on what you allow. People take what is available. Time, energy, tension. And if you make everything available, you will be left with nothing. This is why boundaries are necessary. Not to push people away, but to protect yourself. Your energy, your time, your mental clarity. Because without those, you cannot grow. You cannot focus. You cannot build anything meaningful. But setting boundaries feels difficult. Because it requires something uncomfortable. Discomfort. You must say no. You must risk disapproval. You must accept that not everyone will understand. And that challenges your need for approval. Your fear of rejection. Your desire to be liked. So instead, you avoid it. You stay agreeable. You stay available. You stay open. And slowly, you drain yourself. This is not kindness. This is self-neglect. The Stoic does not live this way. They are not harsh. They are not cold. They are not distant. But they are clear. Clear about what they allow. Clear about what they accept. Clear about what they give. Because they understand something powerful. If you do not respect your own limits, you cannot expect others to respect them. So they set boundaries. Calmly. Directly. Without guilt. Without explanation beyond what is necessary. They say no when something does not align. They step back when something drains them. They walk away when something disrespects them. Not emotionally, not aggressively, but intentionally, because they value themselves. And that is what boundaries represent. Value, self-respect, clarity. They are not barriers. They are standards. Standards for how you are treated. Standards for how you use your time. Standards for how you protect your energy. And those standards define your life. If your standards are low, you will accept anything. If your standards are unclear, you will feel confused. But if your standards are strong, everything changes. You become more focused, more stable, more in control, because you are no longer reacting to everything around you. You are choosing what you allow, what you accept, what you engage with, and that choice is power. First, you will feel uncomfortable. People may question you. They may not understand. They may even resist, because they are used to the old version of you, the version that always said yes, the version that was always available, the version that never pushed back. But that version was not serving you, so you must let it go. You must accept that growth changes how others experience you, and that is okay, because you are not here to be accepted by everyone. You are here to build yourself, to respect yourself, to protect your life, and boundaries are part of that. So you start small. You don't change everything overnight. You begin with awareness. You notice when something feels off, when something drains you, when something crosses a line, and instead of ignoring it, you respond. You say no. You create space. You step back. And each time you do, you feel something: strength, clarity, relief, because you are finally honoring yourself. And that builds self-respect, because now you are no longer abandoning your needs. You are no longer sacrificing your energy. You are no longer ignoring your limits. You are protecting them. And that protection is self-love, not in words, not in feelings, but in action. So if you want to love yourself, you must set boundaries. You must protect your time, protect your energy, protect your peace. Because once those are gone, everything becomes harder. And once you protect them, everything becomes clearer. If you are still here, you are not just listening. You are evolving. Because what comes next will take you even deeper. Stop abandoning yourself. There is something most people never notice. Not because it is hidden, but because it is familiar. They do it so often, it starts to feel normal. They abandon themselves. Slowly, repeatedly, quietly. Not in one dramatic moment, but in small daily choices. Every time they ignore their feelings, they abandon themselves. Every time they silence their truth, they abandon themselves. Every time they say yes, when everything inside them says no, they abandon themselves. And over time, something begins to change. They stop trusting themselves. Because deep down, they know. They know they are not standing by their own side. They know they are not protecting their own needs. They know they are not respecting their own voice. And that creates something heavy. Internal distance. A quiet disconnect between who they are and how they live. They begin to feel lost. Not because they are lost in the world, but because they are lost within themselves. Because when you repeatedly abandon yourself, you lose clarity. You lose direction. You lose identity. And without identity, everything feels unstable. You start looking outside for answers, for validation, for guidance, for someone to tell you who you are. But no one outside can define that for you, because you are the one living your life, not them. This is why self-abandonment is so damaging. It disconnects you from your internal compass. The Stoic understood this deeply. They knew that integrity is not a public performance, but a private discipline. It is what you do when no one is watching. It is how you treat yourself when no one is judging. It is whether you stay aligned with your values, even in small moments, because every small moment matters. Every time you ignore yourself, you weaken your connection to yourself. Every time you override your boundaries, you teach yourself that your voice doesn't matter. Every time you betray your truth, you reinforce self-doubt. And slowly, you stop believing in yourself. Not because you are incapable, but because you stopped standing with yourself. This is the core of self-worth. Not external validation, but internal alignment. Do your actions match your truth? Do your choices reflect your values? Do you stand by yourself even when it is inconvenient. Most people cannot say yes, because they have trained themselves to abandon their own needs, to avoid discomfort, to please others, to maintain peace at any cost. But that peace is not real peace. It is self-neglect disguised as harmony, because inside there is tension, regret, frustration, a quiet awareness that something is wrong, and that awareness never disappears. It stays, waiting, until you finally listen. The truth is simple, but not easy. You cannot build self-love while abandoning yourself. You cannot build confidence while betraying your truth. You cannot build respect while ignoring your needs, because everything you become is shaped by how you treat yourself. So if you want to change your life, you must stop abandoning yourself. Not in theory, but in practice. In real situations, when someone asks too much of you, you pause. You listen to yourself. When something drains you, you step back. When something feels wrong, you do not ignore it. You acknowledge it, because your feelings are not weakness. They are information, signals, guidance. And when you ignore them, you disconnect from yourself. But when you listen, you reconnect. And that connection is where self-respect begins. First, it will feel uncomfortable, because you are breaking an old pattern of pleasing, pattern of avoiding, a pattern of self-abandonment. And your mind will resist. It will say, just say yes. Keep the peace. Don't cause problems. But peace built on self-abandonment is not peace at all. It is suppression. So you must choose differently. You must choose yourself. Even if it feels unfamiliar. Even if it feels uncomfortable. Even if it creates resistance. Because every time you choose yourself, something strengthens. Your self-trust, your identity, your confidence. You begin to feel something new. Stability. Because now, you are not against yourself anymore. You are with yourself. And that changes everything. You no longer feel divided. You no longer feel conflicted. You no longer feel uncertain. Because you are aligned. And alignment creates peace. Real peace. Not the peace of avoiding conflict, but the peace of self-respect. So you must ask yourself honestly, where am I abandoning myself? Where am I ignoring my truth? Where am I saying yes when I mean no? And then, you begin to change it. One moment at a time. One decision at a time. One boundary at a time. Until you become someone who no longer abandons themselves. Someone who stands firm. Someone who listens inward. Someone who respects their own voice. And that version of you is stronger than you realize, because that version is whole. If you are still here, you are not the same person who started this video. You are becoming more aware, more honest, more grounded. So subscribe to this channel to get more of this, because what comes next will bring everything together. 5. Control your inner dialogue. There is a voice you hear more than anything else in your life. It is not loud like the world. It is quiet, constant, personal, and it follows you everywhere. This voice is your inner dialogue, your internal narration, the way you speak to yourself when no one else is around. And most people never question it. They believe it automatically. They accept it as truth, even when it is harmful, even when it is false, even when it is destructive. You are not good enough. You always fail. You should have done better. You are behind. These thoughts appear constantly, and because they come from inside, they feel real. But not every thought is truth. Some thoughts are repetition. Some thoughts are conditioning. Some thoughts are fear disguised as logic. And if you never question them, they become your identity. This is how people are shaped internally. Not by reality, but by repetition. The same thoughts, the same judgments, the same internal criticism, repeated so often that they become belief. And belief becomes behavior. If you believe you are not enough, you act like you are not enough. If you believe you will fail, you avoid trying. If you believe you are behind, You rush without direction. All because of thoughts you never questioned. The Stoic understood this clearly. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. And that distinction changes everything. Because if you are the observer, then you are not controlled by them. You can see them. You can question them. You can choose them. Most people never do this. They react instead of observe. They believe instead of evaluate. They repeat instead of refine. But when you become aware, something powerful happens. Distance is created between you and the thought. And in that space, you gain control. Now you can ask questions. Is this thought true? Is this thought helpful? Is this thought aligned with who I want to become? And if the answer is no, you do not accept it. You replace it, not with blind positivity, but with disciplined thinking. Thoughts based on truth, based on action, based on growth. You shift from, I can't do this, to, I will learn how, from, I always fail, to, I am improving, from, I am behind, to, I am building. This is not denial. This is direction. Because your inner dialogue shapes your outer reality. If your mind is chaotic, your life will feel chaotic. If your mind is critical, your life will feel heavy. But if your mind is disciplined, your life becomes structured, clear, focused, stable. And that stability builds self-respect. Because now, you are not attacking yourself anymore. You are guiding yourself. And that is what self-love looks like internally. Not silence, not avoidance, but control of how you speak to yourself, of what you believe, of what you allow to stay. Because you are not required to believe everything you think. You are allowed to challenge it. And that challenge is where change begins. So you begin to watch your thoughts, not react to them, not obey them, but observe them. And in that observation, you regain power. Now you are no longer controlled internally. You are aware. You are deliberate. You are intentional. And that changes everything. 6. Detach from validation. Once you learn to control your inner world, you begin to see something clearly. You were never lacking confidence. You were dependent on approval, on feedback, on validation. And because of that, you never stood on your own foundation. You waited for others to define you, to confirm you, to approve you. But that confirmation is never stable. One day it comes. The next day it doesn't. One person praises you, another criticizes you, and you swing between them, up and down, confident, then unsure, stable, then lost, because your identity is external. But when you detach from validation, something changes. You stop looking outward for permission. You stop asking for approval. You stop needing agreement. And instead, you act from internal clarity. You do what aligns with your values, not what earns attention. You speak your truth, not what gains approval. You move with intention, not performance. And at first, this feels unfamiliar, because you are no longer playing the same game. The game of approval, the game of acceptance, the game of external validation. But slowly, something powerful appears. Peace. Because you are no longer dependent, no longer reactive, no longer controlled. You begin to realize that most of what you chased was not necessary. It was conditioning. It was habit. It was fear. And once you see that, you stop chasing it. Because you no longer need it. You are already grounded, already stable, already enough. Not because others say so, but because you know so. And that knowing is unshakable. Now everything comes together. You were not broken. You were conditioned to seek approval, to abandon yourself, to doubt your worth, to depend on others for validation. But now you see it clearly. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Your worth was never outside you. It was never in opinions, never in validation, never in approval. It was always within you, waiting to be built, through action, through discipline, through awareness, through truth. And now you have a choice: to continue as before, or to change, to keep seeking, or to start building, to abandon yourself, or to finally stand with yourself. Most people will not choose themselves. They will continue chasing approval, continue seeking validation, continue depending on others, and remain unstable. But you have seen something deeper, and awareness always creates responsibility. So now you must act, not in theory, not in thought, but in life. Respect yourself, through action, through discipline, through boundaries, through awareness, through truth, because that is how self-love is built. Not in words, but in behavior, daily, consistent, intentional. And if you do this, something will change. Not overnight, but permanently. You will stop needing approval. You will stop seeking validation. You will stop abandoning yourself. And you will finally stand as yourself, stable, confident, whole. And from that place, everything in your life begins to shift. Because now, you are not becoming someone else. You are becoming yourself. And that is enough. More than enough. If this message reached you, then you already understand something most people never will. So subscribe to this channel to get more of this. Because this is not motivation. This is transformation. And if you apply it, your life will never be the same again.